Good morning and welcome to you. I'm coming on the first day of August 2025. Thank you for joining me, and I'm going to be covering something which is somewhat of a legend, Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States. I'm going to give you a summary, really, and I hope it's critical in a constructive way. I hope it's a summary so that you can take it away. A lot of British people do not know about Donald J. Trump. They just hear the BBC or they just listen to prejudicial statements. I'm going to try and be balanced, if you like. It's not going to be in praise of Donald J. Trump. It's not going to be uncritical, but equally, it's not going to be one that ignores his achievements either. So the man himself, he had Scottish roots and a property empire formed by his dad, Fred Trump, in real estate. Donald J. Trump was born on June the 14th, 1946. He's the 47th president of the United States of America. And in fact, at 78 years old when he was elected, he's the oldest elected president of the United States. He's the fourth of fifth children. He's number 4 of number 5 children in his family. In 1977, he married and had Donald, Ivanka, and Eric Trump, and he was divorced from that marriage in 1992. He married again in the 1980s and had Tiffany, his fourth child, in 1993. In 2005, he married Melania, who he's currently married to, and his son Baron, who's a very tall young man, was born in 2006. Interestingly, although he had a career in property and real estate, and that was his main career, if you like, what brought him onto the public stage, bar anything, was The Apprentice and the Celebrity Apprentice TV programs. He was shown to be an interesting and controversial man, particularly once he'd put the TV shows behind him. For example, it was shown that in his 2016 to 2020 presidency, there was an allegation that he was in bed with the Russians. It was later proved in 2025, right up to the present day, when I'm speaking to you, that this was a very clear political hit job by the Obama presidency and by the Clintons. It was a hit job. And I think one of the things that often British media fail to understand is that he's been as much sinned against as sinning. In 2015, he found politics was a very hard place to live. He'd really been a very popular person, both on the Liberal Democratic Party left, if you like, and also in the Republican right. But as he came down that escalator at Trump Tower in 2015 to announce his presidency, he found it was a very hard place because the Liberal left deserted him, and many rejected him completely as he stood for the Republican ticket to be US president and stand for that office. And in 2016, he famously won the US presidency with a guy called Mike Pence as his vice president. Now, in summary, I would say that if you wanted to summarize Donald Trump, he started the Make America Great Again, the MAGA movement. You might have heard that word, the MAGA movement. And famously, he wears a red baseball cap with MAGA on it, Make America Great Again. That was his mantra. And he was and is a very, very good communicator. He had a string of, and we're talking about his 2024 campaign, he had a string of campaign meetings across the United States. He was compos mentis, he was cogent, he was fluent, he could put a number of sentences together. He would take interviews from the media, unlike the sitting president, Joe Biden, who was nicknamed by Trump as Sleepy Joe because of his cognitive impairment. So he started this MAGA movement back in 2016, a movement that challenged orthodoxy. He got as much resistance from the Republican old guard almost as he did from the Democrats in the early days. I wanted to move quite quickly into the 2024 election, and that was a landmark one in the sense that he won that, and it was his second presidency. He is, as a man, he is a supreme iconoclast. In other words, he breaks down images. He challenges things, people's concepts. He doesn't accept no for an answer. I would say the defining moment of the 2024 campaign trail for Donald Trump was a place called Butler, Pennsylvania. A young man was interestingly spotted quite early on the roof of a building, but the message didn't get along to all of the Secret Service. This young man aimed several shots. One or two of those shots actually killed some people in the audience who were actually sat behind Donald Trump. One of the bullets actually hit him in the ear and literally winged him. Famously, as he took cover under the podium, he then was surrounded by his Secret Service agents. He stood up, and famously, you've got that picture of him standing up saying, "Fight, fight, fight." This was a man that you couldn't knock down. Now, I've left out a lot of controversy here, but he was the supreme, I'll use that phrase again, iconoclast. His presidency in 2025 has seen tariff threats to nations as large as India, as China and India, right through to the EU, and they're ongoing at the moment. He's failed in many ways with the Russia-Ukraine peace initiative, and famously has attacked with the B-2 bombers Iran's nuclear facilities, and some would say quite successfully so, stymied the Iran's nuclear ambitions. Interestingly, as a man, he's actually a non-smoker and a non-drinker of alcoholic drinks. He likes golf. He plays golf quite regularly. And famously, he survived that very close encounter with death. And I think Butler, Pennsylvania was a landmark case in his bid to become the 47th US president. Despite controversy, he's weathered storms, and in 2025, his political team was much, much stronger than it was in 2016. You only have to look at the Democratic Party under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who were a complete and utter shambles. Joe Biden was cognitively impaired. He couldn't hold a sentence together. He couldn't have an impromptu press conference. He just couldn't do it. Kamala Harris famously couldn't string a paragraph together and came out with these word salads. It was an absolute shambles. The Democratic Party was crumbling and crumbling quickly. Biden's cognitive impairment was denied by the Democrat Party, and they shoehorned Kamala Harris into standing midway through the campaign. The whole thing was complete and utter shambles. So Trump wins by a landslide the US 2024 presidential campaign. He's put in a loyal and talented and a very strong team, and famously has started to sign off his presidential decrees very, very quickly. Famously, again, and controversially, he's used the ICE, it's the immigration department, if you like, in the United States, to slash immigration, particularly on the southern border, but also on the Canadian border as well. And this has been incredibly popular with his base audience. He's also about restoring industry in the United States of America, and is very realistic about fossil fuel use. And I've got to say, look at our own situation in Britain at the moment with the Keir Starmer disaster government and Ed Miliband, who's still faffing around with windmills and solar energy. And famously, Trump said, drill, baby, drill. He's sensible, and I would argue sensible, about fossil fuel use. China is churning out millions and millions of items, and they're building coal-fired power stations even today in 2025. Broadly, Trump is socially conservative, and certainly for the British population, he's very much more Marmite that you don't like. He's a Marmite politician. You either love him or hate him. And for a lot of Brits, they just don't understand the American scene. So they tend to, on the Marmite scale, tend to loathe Donald Trump. He's a narcissist. He wants deals as well. That's because of his main job, which was a real estate entrepreneur. He is broadly pro-family, and he has a very strong family, although he's been married and divorced twice. He's now married to Melania. He's broadly pro-family. He's got a very strong family around him, and he breaks the rules. He doesn't stand on ceremony. In 2025, he sent US B-2 bombers, which can carry a very heavy payload of conventional bombs, bunker busting bombs, to Iran, and he bombed their deep underground nuclear facilities. So he will use force. He's not an isolationist in the strict sense of that term, but he doesn't want endless wars. For his age, remember, when he was elected, he was 78 years old. He's very, very sharp. Compare his press conferences to those press briefings under Joe Biden. And I can't help using the phrase sleepy Joe Biden. Joe Biden was seriously cognitively impaired, seriously. And that's been another scandal, that his support team knew how badly cognitively impaired Joe Biden was. I hope you liked that summary. If you like this summary and you like my channel, please give me a like. Comment on the channel as well. Comment on Donald J. Trump. Say what you think. I'm going to leave it open for comments. Like and subscribe. Thank you, and may God bless you this fine day, the first day of August 2025. Thank you. God bless.